Good evening. Welcome to Loveworld USA News. I'm TCK Andre. A quick look at the top stories this evening. Trump says Israeli strike on Iran could happen as nuclear tensions and evacuations escalate. Appeals court grants Trump administration temporary win in immigration case involving Alien Enemies Act. Supreme Court allows lawsuit over FBI wrong house raid to proceed. Texas deploys over 5,000 National Guard troops ahead of No Kings protests. Air India flight crashes near Ahmedabad, killing hundreds, one survivor reported. And now to the news. President Donald Trump has declared that an Israeli military strike on Iran could very well happen, as the U.S. prepares evacuation efforts from parts of the Middle East amid stalled nuclear negotiations. The comments follow reports that the U.S. has authorized the voluntary departure of military dependents from key embassies in the region, including Iraq. Speaking at a press briefing, Trump emphasized that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, noting the U.S. is willing to engage in trade and diplomacy if Tehran abandons its enrichment program. Negotiations with Iran are ongoing, with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff scheduled to meet Iranian counterparts in Oman on June 15th for the sixth round of talks. Meanwhile, the International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed Thursday that Iran is in breach of its non-proliferation obligations. The nuclear watchdog reported a 35% increase in Iran's stockpile of 60% enriched uranium between February and May. Experts say this material could potentially be weaponized within days if Iran decides to do so. The IAEA's Board of Governors may refer the case to the United Nations Security Council. Despite denials from Iran, U.S. intelligence and defense officials expressed concern over Tehran's nuclear ambitions. No American troops have been withdrawn, but Trump said he ordered evacuations as a precaution. "We've got a lot of Americans in the area. I don't want to be the one who didn't warn them." Regional embassies have been instructed to submit risk mitigation plans as U.S. officials monitor the situation closely. Watch this.
How imminent is an Israeli strike on Iran?
Well, I don't want to say imminent, but it looks like it's something that could very well happen.
How confident are you, sir, that conflict with Iran can be avoided?
Well, I'd love to avoid the conflict. Iran's going to have to negotiate a little bit tougher, meaning they're going to have to give us some things that they're not willing to give us right now.
What the Israelis told you that made you start to evacuate the dependents of servicemen and women who are stationed in the Middle East?
They didn't tell me anything, but I said, look, there's a chance of massive conflict. We have a lot of American people in this area, and I said, we got to tell them to get out because something could happen soon. And I don't want to be the one that didn't give any warning and missiles are flying into their buildings. It's possible. So I had to do it. I had the choice. Do I do it or not? Doing it has its downside, but it also has its upside. Like, you're going to save a lot of lives if it should happen. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals has granted an administrative stay in favor of the Trump administration, pausing a lower court ruling that required the government to provide habeas relief to hundreds of Venezuelan migrants deported to El Salvador. The migrants were removed under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, which the administration has invoked in recent months to expedite deportations of individuals allegedly tied to criminal activity. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg had ruled that the deported migrants were denied due process, citing a lack of prior notice and the inability to challenge their removal. He ordered the administration to submit a plan to offer legal recourse for those held at CCOT, a maximum security facility in El Salvador. The Justice Department pushed back, arguing the court lacked jurisdiction since individuals are no longer under U.S. custody. The appeals court's decision delays enforcement of Boasberg's order, giving the administration more time to prepare its response. Justice Department lawyers warned the ruling threatened to interfere with national security and foreign affairs, calling the lower court's actions unprecedented and constitutionally questionable. They also emphasized the government's right to remove individuals considered threats to public safety. Judge Boasberg has been a key figure in legal challenges to Trump-era immigration enforcement, previously attempting to block deportation flights earlier this year. While the district court moved to hold the administration in contempt for ignoring a prior order, those proceedings were later halted by the same appeals court. A final decision on the broader case is still pending. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled Thursday that a Georgia family may continue their lawsuit against the FBI over a mistaken 2017 raid on their Atlanta home. The unanimous decision permits Toy Cleot, Trina Martin, and her then 7-year-old son to pursue claims under the Federal Tort Claims Act, which allows limited civil actions against the federal government. FBI agents mistakenly entered the family's home with guns drawn and used flashbang devices during a search for a fugitive. The agents quickly left upon realizing their error and later arrested the correct suspect, Joseph Riley, who lived nearby and was subsequently convicted. The Justice Department said the error was based on GPS guidance used by FBI personnel. Lower courts had previously ruled in favor of the government, citing the discretionary function exception, a provision that shields certain federal decisions from legal liability. The Supreme Court did not issue a final ruling on that provision, but said plaintiffs should have the opportunity to argue their claims in lower courts. The case will now return to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit for further proceedings. Justices Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote separately to express concern over the broad application of the discretionary exception in cases involving alleged civil rights violations. Let's take a look.
Court heard the case in April, nearly 8 years after Trina Martin and Toy Cleot's home was raided by armed agents who say they smashed the front door and set off a flashbang. Martin's 7-year-old child was also inside that home when all of this happened. Agents later apologized and said it was the wrong home, with the lead agent saying his GPS led them to the wrong address. Before the Supreme Court's decision, lower courts dismissed the case, calling it an honest mistake. We heard from the family after today's decision, and they say they want to see change.
We're hoping that some of their procedures change. I would actually like for them to actually ban no-knock warrants if it was possible. We don't want to see any other innocent families victimized the same way that we were.
The family says they are taking the case back to the 11th District.
The news will be back after this break. Don't go anywhere.
Money is the sign of shortage. Money is not the sign of blessing, it is the sign of shortage. Money is not the evidence of blessing, it is the evidence of shortage. It is the evidence of lack. I know nobody ever told you that. So you better listen to me now. I walk in absolute prosperity, so I can tell you, money is not the sign of prosperity, it's a sign of lack. It's a game that defines the classification of people. Once you are able to see beyond it and understand what God's plan is and who you are not controlled by money. Money becomes your slave. Somebody said, I wish I heard what Pastor just said in the month of May. Month of blessing, I would have applied it. You still have time. We carry all the blessings of the previous month into the new ones. That's what we do. Never let the thought of money control your attitude. Yes, sir. You know, there are people who become happy when they have money. And when they don't have it, you can tell. You just look at them, you can tell. You can tell they're broken down. Money's their master. They're worshiping the god of Mammon. When you are delivered from that, or when you've not been enslaved by that, you don't know when you've had money and when you've not had money, because you don't operate with those numbers. La korabakasaya, rabakandalobosia. Are you still there?
This excerpt is brought to you by Loveworld News. Loveworld News.
Welcome back. Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced Thursday the deployment of more than 5,000 Texas National Guard troops and over 2,000 state police to support local law enforcement amid upcoming protests against President Donald Trump and federal immigration operations. While the state did not specify exact troop placements, National Guard members were observed at a protest near the Alamo in San Antonio on Wednesday. That demonstration, which remained peaceful, was part of growing national unrest tied to immigration enforcement. Additional protests under the No Kings banner are scheduled for Saturday in San Antonio, Houston, Austin, and Dallas. Governor Greg Abbott stated that while peaceful protest is constitutionally protected, Texas will not tolerate lawlessness. His remarks followed reports of clashes earlier in the week in Austin and Dallas, where police dispersed crowds using chemical agents and made several arrests. The deployment underscores ongoing tensions between state and local leadership. Mayors in San Antonio and Austin have publicly stated they did not request National Guard assistance. Since 2021, Texas has maintained a robust Guard presence through Operation Lone Star, and recently expanded authority under an agreement with the Trump administration, allowing Guard troops to arrest individuals crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally. Watch this.
Today, the governor said he ordered the deployment of more than 5,000 soldiers, along with more than 2,000 state police to help local law enforcement manage the so-called No Kings protests against President Trump. Protests earlier this week in Austin and Dallas led to brief clashes with police who used chemical irritants to get the crowd to disperse. About a dozen people were arrested.
Justice Neil Gorsuch issued a sharp dissent Thursday after the Supreme Court ruled to limit the U.S. tax court's jurisdiction in certain disputes involving the IRS, cautioning that the decision could empower the agency to avoid scrutiny for its errors. The case, Commissioner of Internal Revenue V. Zook, involved a long-running dispute over misapplied tax payments and subsequent collection actions. The majority opinion upheld that the tax court lacked jurisdiction to consider the case once the IRS dropped its levy, effectively ending any active collection effort. The taxpayer, Jennifer Zook, claimed the IRS mistakenly credited a $50,000 payment to her ex-husband's account instead of her own and had sought a hearing to recoup overpayments made in later years. The IRS applied Zook's subsequent overpayments to the disputed 2010 tax bill, and when the balance reached zero, it withdrew its levy and moved to dismiss the case. The tax court agreed, and the Supreme Court affirmed that without an active levy, the court could no longer rule on her claim. Zook is now left without a forum to challenge the agency's handling of her tax account. In his dissent, Gorsuch argued the decision creates a dangerous precedent by allowing the IRS to evade judicial review simply by removing a levy. He warned that the ruling gives the agency a roadmap for evading tax court review, reducing protections for taxpayers, and weakening oversight of federal tax enforcement. Advanced Micro Devices has unveiled its next-generation artificial intelligence chips, the Instinct MI400 series, slated for release in 2026. CEO Lisa Su introduced the chips at an event in San Jose, emphasizing their rack-scale system capabilities, which allows thousands of chips to function as a single computing unit, an increasingly important feature for large-scale AI data centers. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman joined Su on stage and confirmed that OpenAI plans to use AMD's new chips. The partnership signals growing demand for alternatives to NVIDIA, which currently holds over 90% of the data center GPU market. AMD claims its MI400 chips will offer cost and energy efficiency advantages over NVIDIA's Blackwell series, including higher performance at lower power consumption. AMD's Helios racks, which will house the MI400 chips, are designed to compete directly with NVIDIA's Vera Rubin systems. AMD has also increased its investment in the AI space by acquiring 25 companies, including ZT Systems, to support full-stack integration of hardware and networking components. 7 of the world's top 10 AI companies, including OpenAI, Meta, and Microsoft, are already using AMD's current Instinct chips. Analysts estimate the AI chip market will exceed $500 billion by 2028. AMD, while still a distant second to NVIDIA, reported $5 billion in AI chip sales in fiscal 2024 and expects 60% growth in 2025. Oracle has announced plans to deploy over 131,000 MI355X chips, and Meta and Microsoft have integrated AMD chips for inference operations in their AI platforms. The news continues after this break. Stay with us.
The life of a soldier is not just a job, it's a calling and a sacred tradition passed down from father to son, brother to sister, and one generation to the next. At every hour of danger, our noblest citizens have answered that call. Time and again, our enemies have learned that if you dare to threaten the American people, American soldier will chase you down, crush you, and cast you into oblivion. The last sound you ever hear will be the dueling howl of Black Hawks. thunderous boom of artillery fire, or the ferocious roar of a U.S. Army infantry brigade. For our adversaries, there's no greater fear than the United States Army. Now it's your duty to shield the flame of freedom that was first lit 250 years ago by the heroes of Concord Bridge and Bunker Hill. Standing before you today, I am more confident than ever that in the days ahead and every generation to come, the U.S. Army will heap glory upon glory. You will protect every inch of U.S. soil, and you will defend America to the ends of the earth.
Welcome back. An Air India Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner en route to London's Gatwick Airport crashed Thursday shortly after takeoff from Ahmedabad, India, killing most of the 242 people on board. Authorities confirmed the aircraft went down in a residential area near the airport, sparking a massive fire. At least one survivor has been reported, a man identified as seated near an emergency exit, according to police and media reports. The aircraft issued a mayday call minutes after departure before crashing into a building housing medical students. Local officials say at least 294 people are presumed dead, including passengers, crew, and individuals in the building. The crash, which marks the first recorded fatal accident involving a Boeing 787, is now under investigation by Indian aviation authorities with potential U.S. assistance from the FAA and NTSB. Air India stated the flight carried 169 Indian nationals, 53 Britons, 7 Portuguese citizens, and 1 Canadian. Rescue and recovery operations are ongoing with emergency services working through the wreckage. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer both expressed condolences, while Air India and Boeing pledged full cooperation in the investigation. The cause of the crash has not yet been confirmed, but video footage appears to show the aircraft descending slowly with its nose pitched upward before erupting in flames. India's civil aviation minister said emergency response teams are on high alert and the area has been largely cleared. This tragedy adds new scrutiny to global aviation safety, especially as it involves one of Boeing's most advanced aircraft. Watch this.
Shares of plane maker Boeing fell 5% on Thursday. Investors sold off after an Air India 787-8 Dreamliner aircraft crashed in India's western city of Ahmedabad. Officials said more than 200 people on board the London-bound plane were killed. It was not immediately clear what caused the crash. It posed a major setback for Boeing and the Dreamliner jet's safety record. The wide-body 787 models had never had a fatal crash until Thursday's incident. It could also affect Boeing's efforts to rebuild trust related to safety under new CEO Kelly Ortberg. Boeing said in a statement it was aware of initial reports and was working to gather more information. The company has faced years of scrutiny and delays over its narrow-body 737 MAX jets. They were grounded for years following 2 fatal crashes.
A growing environmental crisis is unfolding in the Mediterranean as thousands of illegal fish aggregating devices threaten marine ecosystems off Sicily's coast. Sea Shepherd, a marine conservation group, has joined forces with Italian authorities to locate and remove these plastic-based traps, which are banned under national law due to their environmental impact. These illegal FADs, anchored to the seabed with nets made from plastic waste and nylon lines, lure juvenile fish species such as bluefin tuna and swordfish. Left unchecked, they endanger fish populations and marine biodiversity, while also entangling protected species like turtles and dolphins. According to Sea Shepherd, over 36,000 of these devices, each using up to 1.2 kilometers of nylon line, pollute the South Tyrrhenian Sea. Since 2017, Sea Shepherd has removed 676 FADs, collaborating with scientists to create the first comprehensive map of their locations. Italian officials confirmed that all recently removed devices were illegal and made of non-biodegradable materials. The group is also repurposing recovered plastic into sea turtle rescue crates through a partnership with local recycling firms. Marine experts call for regulated FAD zones and the development of biodegradable alternatives, although high costs remain a challenge. In the meantime, Sea Shepherd continues its mission, working closely with Coast Guards and researchers to combat what they call the biggest marine environmental disaster ever. And in breaking news, we can confirm that Israel has launched an attack on Iran. As we reported earlier in the day, Israel was considering a preemptive strike on Iran, and within the last few minutes while we were live on air, reports from Israeli Minister of Defense Katz has confirmed that Israel has launched a preemptive strike on Iran, specifically in their capital, Tehran, and a nearby city, Kabir. In response to that, Israel also closed their airspace and declared a state of emergency. Recent reports have come out stating that they're preparing for days of war following their strike and that there may be more strikes to come. U.S. officials have also come out to say that they had no involvement in this attack and were only informed of this days earlier, but they had to clarify that they have no involvement in the attack. We will keep you updated as this story develops. And now, just before we end the news, let's take a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. And to end the news today, a quick recap of the headlines. Appeals court grants Trump administration temporary win in immigration case involving Alien Enemies Act. Supreme Court allows lawsuit over FBI wrong house raid to proceed. Texas deploys over 5,000 National Guard troops ahead of No Kings protests. And Air India flight crashes near Ahmedabad, killing hundreds, one survivor reported. And that's the news for today. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I'm TGK Andre. Good night, and God bless you.